What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I'm finally getting to my preview for tomorrow's game. There is a good amount to talk about. There are some things when it comes to COVID and stuff, injuries. Obviously, we're going to talk about that, where that stands, and then, get into the actual league standings, the comparisons, and so on and so forth, keys to victory, predictions, and all of that good stuff. So let's jump right into it. Gonna slide me over here. First thing I do want to talk about is let's go through some stuff for the Dolphins. So they activated safety. No, he's not a safety. Typo there. They activated defensive lineman Adam Butler and safety Brandon Jones off the reserve COVID list. But similarly to Javon Holland, when they activated him off the list, they have yet to clear the COVID protocols, but they needed to be removed from the list by 4 p.m. if they wanted a shot to even play on Sunday. So what that means is, as I've been mentioning, they still might not play. They just have to clear the protocols by that last testing period before the game, which is like a couple hours before the game, like an hour or two before the game, something like that, right? So there is still a chance. They did come off the list, but there is still a chance these guys will not be active for the game. So that is something that we will look to when it comes to the inactives. Are they on there, or are they actually clear to play? It's just those two guys are significant, but nothing crazy, right? Like, it's not like we're missing half of our team like the Saints were last week, for example, right? I think we can manage without them, but hopefully and obviously if we do get them back, that will be huge for us. They did also place Noah and safety Sheldrick Redwine on the COVID list, so a couple positives. Obviously, they don't really do much for us anyway, so not really a loss there. Linebacker Brennan Scarlett was removed from injured reserve. Probably not really much there, but, okay, cool, and glad that he's getting healthy. Not much there, as in, like, it doesn't really affect us much. And then they elevated Kirk Merritt and Cameron Tom as COVID-19 replacements from the practice squad, and defensive back Chris Milton as a standard practice squad elevation for the game. So we still do have on the COVID list, aside from these guys who were just added, it is John Jenkins, which is another one of those defensive linemen, the rotational guys. Other than that, who is it? Man, I don't even remember, because like none of the guys were even really important, and there was only a couple left. But anyway, that's really what it is. I did look it up, but I forgot already, because I just looked it up before doing this and forgot already, because it doesn't really matter. It's like two guys and they're not even important. So anyway, but that's the situation. And by the way, I mean, it looks like both teams are going to be going into this contest relatively healthy, and about as full full force as they can be. Obviously, that is with the context of the players that both of these teams still have on the COVID list, and the Titans have they've had just an ungodly amount of players placed on injured reserve over the course of the year, but they are expected to have their entire starting offensive line in this game. They will be without Julio Jones. He did not clear the COVID list, so he will remain out. A.J. Brown is going to be playing. He did have a minor calf injury early in the week, or in the middle of the week, but he only missed the one day. He was a full participant in their last day. He should be good. They did get Westbrook-Akine back from the COVID list, so he'll be there. Jayon Brown and Kendall Lamb did not come off the COVID list, and apparently Kendall Lamb was actually, not Kendall Lamb, sorry, Laurel Murchison. We'll get to the injuries in a minute, but he was downgraded to out, but not really a huge deal. They did get Bud Dupree, Danico Autry, and Buster Screen all back. They activated all of those guys off of the COVID list, so that is a pretty big deal for them. But just like Brandon Jones and Adam Butler for us, they still, although they don't mention if they've cleared protocols like they did it, like the person did in the other article. So I don't know if these guys have actually cleared protocols yet, but my guess is that either they did, or they just, or it could be a similar situation to the Dolphins, how they took them off the list in hopes that they will clear. So those will be a couple notable names to just keep an eye on for the inactives for the Tennessee Titans. But as I mentioned, both teams do expect to go into this relatively healthy and with pretty much everybody good to go. And then as you see, once we actually get into the injury report, neither team really has a ton of guys on the COVID list, so just a few for each team. And most of the players are, overall are not, super important. And then when you get to the injury list for us, Adam Butler and Brandon Jones are the only guys who are questionable with an illness, as I just explained and mentioned. We don't know yet if they are going to actually clear protocols and be, cleared to play, but we will find out tomorrow. Other than that, it's Jesse Davis, Phillip Lindsay, and Adam Shaheen, a knee, ankle, knee, all respectively, but they should be good to go because none of them have designations, as we talked about. So the only questionable players for the Titans are Laurel Murchison, who was downgraded to out, but, not really a big deal there. Derek Roberson with an illness. He may have been one of the players that they had on COVID. I don't remember. But anyway, he's questionable. Other than that, everybody does not have a game status designation. That's A.J. Brown with his calf, David Long with his hamstring, Taylor Lewan with his back, Harold Landry with his hamstring, Jack Rabbit Jenkins with his ankle, Aaron Brewer with his toe, and Corey Levin with an illness. Everybody else should be good to go and ready for that game. Real quick, just a side note, because I thought it was interesting. I did read an article about the trade. It was on the Titans stream, the Bleacher Report stream, and I've been checking in there. One, because obviously we're getting ready to play him, so for the news, if any important news, but in particular because I was following the COVID stuff. But there was an article about the trade in 2019, and they gave away a late round. It was like a 6th or 7th round 2019 pick and a 4th round 2020 pick for Ryan Tannehill in that trade. And obviously Ryan Tannehill has, he's had a bunch of come from behind wins for them. They've gone to the playoffs the past couple years, an AFC championship, right? So they view that as a win for them, and they got the better of the deal. But then we also gave them a mid to late round pick as part of that package that turned into David Long, who is apparently, becoming one of their better linebackers and, a potential long-term deal. So, I mean, look, I've been one of the people that has said that over the past 3 years that the vast majority of trades executed by this current regime, I actually think we've lost the vast majority of them. Minka, Tunsil, Ryan Tannehill, all of them, bro. And then all these 7th round picks that we trade away for other players that end up being washes or busts or don't work out for us. The vast majority of trades to me have not been good over the past few years. But I digress. Anyway, let's continue on with this preview. The Dolphins are 8-7. The Titans are 10-5. Obviously, this is a huge game for both teams because of playoff implications. The Dolphins, obviously, they need to win out, and they can make the playoffs, right? Destiny is currently in their hands. If they win this game and next week's game against the Patriots, then they will be going to the playoffs as a wild card team in the 7th seed, potentially even the 6th seed, depending on how the rest of the games, pan out. I personally don't see that happening, but that is obviously what the Dolphins, I hope so, I hope it happens, but that is what the Dolphins are playing for. The Titans, on the other hand, if they win this game, they obviously move to 11-5 on the season, but they will then lock up the division. They will win. They will win the division. If they lose and the Colts lose this week, they will also win the division. But if they win this game, then they win the division and they guarantee their spot in the playoffs. But that also gives them the ability to compete with the Chiefs for the number 1 seed still. So they will still be alive in the race for the number 1 seed. So this game is huge, 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 huge for the Titans. It is a massively important game because obviously that first seed means you get the first week of the playoffs off. You get the first round bye. And they are looking to get Derrick Henry back for the playoffs. I assume he would come back in the wild card round, but that does give them an extra week of rest, not just for him, but obviously the rest of their team as well. And then you also get home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So that is a major, and they also could, in fact, rest players next week because if they lock up the division this week, now, they would still be trying to most likely be playing for the number 1 seed, so they might not do that, but they could do that. They could rest starters in that last game. Plus, it's against the Texans, and yes, they lost to the Texans in their first matchup against them this year, but reasonably, I would expect that they probably still will get that win, and they still could rest some of their prominent starters anyway. So, huge implications in this game all around for both teams. Also, point of interest. Obviously, it's a home game for the Titans, so the Dolphins have to travel. It is their second consecutive away game. So they will have home field advantage in that regard, but also because it's supposed to be like stupid cold and it's supposed to be like snowing and shit tomorrow and potentially. And so it is going to be, elements wise, potentially a tough game as well. Maybe some wind and stuff like that, which could cause some issues for our kicker who's had a rough year, right? And so, and obviously in these types of elements, ideally you want to be able to run the ball well. And that is an advantage that they will have over us unquestionably. They are far better at running the ball than we are, which we're going to get to these league standings in just a second. But that is going to be a huge key. And, well, we'll get to the keys in just a minute. Keys to the game in just a minute. But let's go ahead now and take a look at these league standings and where we are. So, and how we match up. They do have us beat in total offense. We're currently ranked 24th with 4,665 yards on the season and 311 per game. They're currently ranked 18th with 5,109 on the year, 340.6 per game. We do actually have them beat in passing, though, which is not really a surprise when you've looked. First of all, I do think Tua is the better overall passer. He is still young and has a lot of room to grow, but I do think his ceiling is higher than Ryan Tannehill. But the other thing, though, is obviously the Titans are a run-heavy team, a run-first team. The Dolphins suck at that. We've kind of been forced into having to pass. Although somehow Tua has been able to manage it and make it work with this terrible offensive line. Anyway, but those are some of the contextual differences. We do beat them in this standing, though. We are currently 16th with 3,622 total yards, 241.5 per game. They're currently 22nd at 3,338 on the year and 222.5 per game. But as you can see here, there is a massive disparity in our abilities to run the ball. We're currently 30th with 1,299 yards on the season. They end 86.6 per game. They are currently 4th in the league with 2,082 on the year and 138.8 per game. And this has persisted. Like, people are like, oh, there's no Derrick Henry. And yes, I get it. That's huge. But their run game hasn't exactly fallen off a cliff since he's been out. Deontay Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard have actually done a really good job for them. And then you throw in and sprinkle in some Tannehill and maybe some of these other guys that they use in, like, some different, packages or whatever out of the backfield, right? So it's not like this has been consistent even with Derrick Henry out. At going into week 17, they are still the 4th best team in the league to do it. They do have us beat in points. We're currently 21st or 20th after ties, 305 on the season and 20.3 per game. They are currently 15th at 357 on the season and 23.8 per game. And when it comes to third down offense, we have actually been pretty good, especially since Tua's been playing. We are 12th in the league, decent at 41.3, but they are a bit better at 42.3, which has them 9th. So they do have a pretty good offense. Overall, they have a better offense than the Saints do. Even with them at full strength, the Titans still would have a better offense overall. Obviously, the offense that they put on the field last week, it's just night and day, not even comparable. But they have a much better offense. And with them having most of their weapons available and particularly having that entire offensive line back, expected to be back, I mean, that is huge, huge, huge for them. And it is going to make it a bit more difficult for our defense to get home. I do not expect to have 8 sacks or even 6 or 5 sacks. It would be awesome. I'd love to see it for sure. And if we can get that kind of production, then we do stand a chance to win. However, I don't see that happening. Maybe we get 1, 2, possibly even 3 throughout the course of the game. But I do not see us being that disruptive, especially with them having those guys back. Now, let's take a look at the defensive side of the ball. They do have us beat in overall yardage. We're currently 15th. They are 13th. We are giving up 336.7 per game. They're giving up 333.2. We do have them beat in passing, which it's funny though with them because as you'll see later on when we get to the interceptions and the passes defense, they might give up a good amount of yards, but they are, they're pretty good at stopping the pass in other ways besides that. So anyway, we're currently 22nd. They're 26th. We're giving up 258. They're giving up 265.3. Now, when it comes to the run, though, we have been much better since Raekwon Davis has come back. And obviously, through the win streak, we haven't played particularly great teams. And even some of those teams that had running backs that were good, like the Jets, Michael Carter got hurt in the first game. Christian McCaffrey got hurt and left that game against the Panthers. So that has played a factor in it, but we have risen up to 7th in the league, only allowing 102.3. I think there is some chance that will drop. I thought it was going to drop last week, but obviously with all the COVID hits, it changed the dynamics of that game. But with the Titans and the Patriots, who are 2 of the best running teams in the league, I do expect that to drop a little bit. They are currently, though, 2nd in the league in run defense, only allowing 86.7, which is right about where, if you remember, that's where we average in running. We're 86.6, so that's literally right there. So, expect maybe something along those lines, unfortunately. Which would not bode well for us. When it comes to points, we're currently 10th or 7th after ties, allowing 21. They are 16th or 11th after ties, allowing 21.7. So they are allowing a little bit more than we are. So we do have them slightly beat there. When it comes to takeaways, we're pretty close, although we are a little bit better. We have 23 on the season, which is 10th or 8th after ties. They're pretty good, though, overall. They have 20, which is 13th or 11th after ties. Now, they do have us beat in interceptions. We're 14th with 13 on the season, 9th after ties. They are currently 10th with 15, 7th after ties. We do have them beat in fumbles. We're better in that department. We currently are 6th in the league, or 5th after ties with 10. They're currently 27th or 10th after ties with 5. When it comes to sacks, obviously after, especially over the course of this win streak, we've gotten 33, if I recall correctly, 33 of our 45 sacks over the past 7 games. And when you look at the context of those games, the teams we played, the quarterbacks, etc., it's not super surprising because we only got 12 sacks in the first half of the season. But it is good enough for getting us up from 9th all the way up to 1st, so pretty big jump there. But they're pretty good too at 37 on the season, 12th or 8th after ties. Both teams are good in the passes defense department. We are 1st with 83. They are 5th or 4th after ties with 75. Now, when it comes down to third down defense, we did, although it was a pretty marginal decrease here, we did take a substantial jump from 25th to 18th, but they are 8th in the league, only allowing 37.4%. And obviously, this is over the course of the entire season. So they do beat us in that category. It is going to be a very tough game for the Dolphins. All right, now let's get into the comparison of each team's last game played. So this is the game that the Titans played against the 49ers, and this is obviously us against the Saints, who are decimated by COVID. So it is what it is. But this is how we performed. So obviously you can see both teams scored 20 points. If that were to play out, then it would be a tie. It would obviously have gone to overtime and then ended up as a tie if this was the ending score. We do not want that. We want to get a win here. And obviously we don't want to lose. But if you look at the rest of this, then it would lead you to believe that if either of the two teams is gonna win, it would be the Titans, because they beat us in, I think, every other category. Except time of possession is the one category that we win in. So they win in total yards. They had 278 to our 259. They had 188 passing yards to our 173. They had 90 rushing yards to our 86. They were 4.8 yards per play to our 4.4. Neither team lost a fumble, so we're tied there. But they did win the turnover margin overall because they didn't throw any picks and we threw one. They were 56% on third downs, which is pretty fucking crazy, right? So, and obviously they're really good at that overall in the league and have been all year. So we can't let that happen. We were only 33%. They had the ball for 29-29. We had it for 33-56. And they had 6 penalties to our 7. So again, most of these categories they do win. And so if that's the case, likely it will end up as a loss for the Dolphins. But now let's take a quick look at our quarterback comparison. So Tua is 70.1% completion percentage on the season. He beats Ryan Tannehill 66.7, which isn't terrible, especially considering the fact that he has been one of the more sacked quarterbacks in the league this year at 45 sacks on the season. The offensive line has been decimated. He's lost a ton of his weapons, etc., etc. He has done a pretty damn good job considering the context. And they are 10-5 on the season, you know, potentially about to lock up the division and their playoff spot if they get a win today or tomorrow, excuse me. And he does also have Tua beat in yardage. Obviously that's in large part because of the fact that Tua missed a few games, but you know, Tannehill has 3,327 on the year, 2,339 for Tua. They're tied in touchdowns at 15. Obviously, that's not so good for Ryan Tannehill, especially when you look at the touchdown to interception ratio. He's thrown 4. Tua has only thrown 9. And Tua has a 94 passer rating, a little bit better than 84.8 for Tannehill. But again, the context, I know a lot of Dolphins fans just want to shit on Tannehill. Now, again, I've always said that he's never going to be elite. I think he is a great quarterback, and he certainly has led them on plenty of game-winning drives this season, and since he's been with them, he's never going to be an elite top 5, but I do think he's easily a top 15, potentially even a top 10 quarterback in this league, and they've had a ton of injuries. They are one of the most injured teams in this league, in the league this year, and he has been one of the most sacked quarterbacks as a result. So I think it's important to have that context. Anyway, let's move on now to the keys to victory. So offensively, there's a lot here. Obviously, my number 3 is always the same because they have yet to actually fucking fix it. No costly mistakes, penalties, or turnovers. But the first thing is protect Tua and run the ball effectively. If they do get Danico Autry and Bud Dupree back and they do play tomorrow, especially if that's the case, but even if it's not the case, this defense and that defensive front has a lot of potential to get to the quarterback. And our offensive line is fucking trash, right? So the very first thing that they need to do is protect Tua in pass protection, give him some time, but also do that in part by being able to run the ball effectively, especially considering the fact that their weather conditions are likely to not be very good. So that is going to be very important. They then need to let Waddle loose early and often, especially considering the fact, and they need to, the early part is an emphasis because the weather conditions again are not going to be all that great, and he is very good at taking a lot of that short yardage stuff and making stuff out of it, etc., etc. So they can use a lot in the passing game. If they should be run heavy in this game, especially considering the conditions, but the expected conditions. But when they do throw the ball, obviously it's primarily a short passing attack anyway, but because of the conditions, it should be even more of the game plan, and Waddle can be huge in that. Now defensively, they need to stop the run first. Then they need to shut down A.J. Brown, who will be their primary guy, although they do have, some other weapons that will be effective, I think. But that's the primary thing. One, stop the run, shut down Brown, and then get after Tannehill and try and create some turnovers. If they're able to do these things, then I definitely see a path in which that they can win. I think it's going to be a tough game overall, though, and I do lean towards the Titans. I'm sorry, Dolphins fans, but I just got to keep it real. And I'm saying that my prediction for this game is going to be a 20-13 Saints. I was about to say Saints. A 20-13 Titans win. I hope I'm wrong about that. I do. And, I hope the Dolphins can win, because if they do lose this game, then the odds of them making the playoffs is, essentially done. There will be a handful of ways they can, but the game against the Patriots next week is not going to be easy either, and I can see a realistic path to this team ending up 8-9, which obviously will not be good enough to make the playoffs. And the Patriots are going to have plenty to play for next week, so even after they get what should be a relatively easy win this week against the Jaguars, even though they have surprised some teams this year, but they should be able to get that win. They still will have stuff to play for next week. And so I do expect us to get the Patriots best. Anyway, that's how it is. That's how I see it. And hopefully I'm wrong, but that is my honest and unbiased evaluation for this game and my prediction for this game. So let's go out and prove me wrong. Otherwise, I am going to get out of here. Before I do, make sure you check out the Rave On Sports App, the new fan-driven sports app for all your sports, whether it be basketball, baseball, football, college, whatever you like. They got it, and they are looking to enhance your game day experience with live play-by-play coverage, live chats with other fans and content creators like myself, as well as providing you with an arena to discuss and complain about all of the terrible officiating, which we all experience year in and year out. So check for the links to that in the description box. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comments section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at DillonTartaro, as well as on Instagram at Dolphins_with_Dillon. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.